not interested in getting ripped off by an avatar. You insult me. My servant and I are transporting down.
Do that and my auto-defense systems will take you out. I decide who's authorized to land and when.
You don't look smart enough to run this dump. How soon before your boss finds out I have real dilithium on board I am willing to part with, and you're making me hover like a peasant?
Hang on. Real dilithium.
What did I just say? Imbecile. You want to let this prize go? You don't think your boss is watching you watching me? I am losing my patience.
Well.
Form a sentence!
All right. You're cleared to land. But I've got my eyes on you.
I don't care about your eyes unless they were dangling from my belt.
Welcome, everyone, to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. I am one of your hosts, Johnson, and with me, I believe, is Mike. Mike, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I'm here. Finally, we are recording. We are having a plethora of internet issues in New York City.
Yeah, techno issues.
So we are back on our phones.
We were having during our last podcast recording. So
correct. Yes.
Spectrum has not resolved the problem yet.
No, it has not. So we are back on our phones. Brought to you by T-Mobile and Verizon.
Yes.
5G.
5G.
I don't know who has the better connection, but
according to T-Mobile, we do, or I do rather.
Yeah. Well,
the commercials. I believe the commercials.
Oh, great. So you're with that half of the country. That's great.
Yes. So great. So for those of you that may be just joining us for this episode and might miss the last couple of episodes, there's been a lot going on in our lives. So we have decided to do more truncated podcast episodes that will hopefully also be a little more digestible than some of our 2-hour episodes. So that might be an extra plus for our listeners. So today we are going to just talk about some of the things that we've been Star Trekking and then get into this week's Discovery episode, Scavengers. So first, let's start with what did we Star Trek this week / the past 3 weeks, since it's been a while since we've actually talked about what we've been Star Trekking. So Mike, other than Discovery, what have you been Star Trekking?
Well, so I have been watching more Voyager. So I finished. I skipped a group of episodes, basically the last block of whatever alien they were dealing with in season 5.
Okay.
And watched the finale, which was Equinox. I moved into season 6, so I've watched a few episodes of season 6.
Okay.
And yeah, so the last episode I watched was Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy.
All right.
So,
I remember that one.
which was I enjoyed that episode. So I am now moving forward with that. And then what else have I been? So I did all of this talk about trills in Discovery, and talking about the caves of Makala, right? From episode 4. So I went back yesterday, or was it yesterday? Recently, in the last couple of days, and I watched the episode from Deep Space Nine, Equilibrium.
Okay.
And I was actually really impressed. I mean, so from a low sets perspective, I was really impressed with the caves of Makala, because obviously they looked even more real now, but they looked pretty. They did a lot of similarities with the caves.
Yes.
So I was really impressed with that. The other pieces of the episode
but
really
that's
weren't.
That's the episode where she discovers the whole thing with Durant, right?
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So she learns about, or she's having all these hallucinations, and they take her
Right.
back to Trill, and then they're about to remove the symbiote and kill
Right.
Jadzia.
This was the episode I was talking about, where they were like, oh, a much larger percentage of the troll population can actually be hosts.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And according to this episode, it's about half the population could be.
Correct.
And it would be there would be a run on symbiotes, and there'd be all these problems. So they put everyone through these rigmarole tests and whatnot. So yeah, so I thought it was a mildly enjoyable episode. I would say that it wasn't the best written episode. There was a lot of telling you details instead of showing you details.
It is kind of mythology building, though, which I kind of like that sometimes.
Yeah, the investigation was a little, they did all of the investigation from the Bridge of the Defiant. There was for a character perspective, there was a sweet scene between Bashir and Jadzia when she comes and sleeps in his quarters on the Defiant one night. So that was kind of cute and endearing. And it was also interesting to see Jadzia in a less strong position than she's normally in. So yeah, I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. I loved the Caves of Makala set. I loved Timon, I forget his name, who helped her initially, and then got scared and wouldn't help them, and that's what prompted the whole investigation. But so yeah, it was good to see some Trill, location building. I wish we had seen more of Trill, kind of like we did in Discovery. But
well, we got like a map painting, I think, of like a Trill building or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So that, and the only other thing I've been Star Trekking is that I did listen to the latest audiobook, Contest of Principles by Greg Cox.
Which one was this?
It's an original series novel that actually just came out last week, I think.
Oh my god. Like original series or reboot?
No, original series.
Oh,
so
wow.
They're still releasing novels in that range.
Oh my
god. And I'll tell you, like, I listened to the first chapter and a half, and I was almost tempted to return it. Because Audible is great that you can listen to it, and if you're not happy, you can return it.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. You could listen to the whole book, and if you're not satisfied, you could actually return it.
What? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't do that very often. I've never done it where I've listened to the entire book, because I know that's not. But if I'm partway through a book and I'm not enjoying it, and I know I just want to be done with it, I will return it. Okay. Exchange it for another title. So I was tempted to do that with the first chapter and a half. I was like kind of bored. I was like, because honestly, like, there's a lot of connections to our time now in the book. A disease, an election. Well, primarily an election on this one world, and then there are two other worlds that are star systems away. So they're each like 3 star systems, and they're relatively close to one another, because McCoy at first takes a shuttle from the first planet to the second planet. He's then kidnapped to a third planet, and then Spock goes to the second planet with another shuttle, and then goes to the third planet, and then they leave the third planet to go back to the Enterprise. So there's a lot of, there's like, yeah, the election is the big part of this story, but also disease, and that one of the characters has, that the cure isn't working, and so they find out that there's some nefarious things going on, and so it actually turned out to be pretty interesting, and I'm glad I waded through it. But there was a moment there where I was going to return it, and I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh, this isn't what I want to listen to right now, but I gave it a second shot and finished it. So but that's primarily what I've been. Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and then an original series novel. So I think that's pretty much it. What about you? What have you been Star Trekking lately?
Yeah, so I've been working my way through Enterprise season 4. I'm actually almost done. I only have the last episode left, which I was telling you before, I'm not really looking forward to watching because it's not the best episode of Enterprise. And as you may recall, and as some of our fans may know, there was kind of an uproar over the last episode because they decided to bring Riker and Troy back, and for the producers, it was supposed to be kind of like this like Valentine to the fans, but the fans weren't thrilled with it. And this Scott Bakula even was like really upset about it. So there was like a lot of behind the scenes drama. So and the problem is it's also not like the best episode. It's like fine. They did put effort into it because they essentially recreate the sets of the Enterprise D. So it's, you know, it's effort notwithstanding. It just wasn't, I would say, the best episode of Enterprise. And it was one of the, I mean, other than, I guess, maybe the original series, like it was the only series ender that was only one episode. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, all of the other ones have been 2 hours.
Yeah. So so I'm not really looking forward to it, but it's fine. I just gotta finish it so I can say I've moved on with my life. So Enterprise, after Enterprise, what I'm gonna do with my life? I don't know. Rewatch Voyager? I don't know. Because the thing right now, okay, so the thing with Enterprise is that it is like, and we say this about Star Trek, it's like comfort food, right? It's just like, all right, I can watch something. I didn't need to think too much or pay too much attention. You know, I can just watch this. It's not like The Queen's Gambit, which I don't know if you've seen it yet. I doubt it. Or even The Crown, where I'm like, I got to watch this. I got to sit down and watch this and pay attention. So I kind of need something like that right now where I'm kind of like, and The Expanse is coming back in 2 weeks. So that'll be something. But The Expanse is a show where you got to pay attention. You don't pay attention, forget it. It's over.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So, yeah, I need like another show where I'm like, I can just kind of watch it and just not think about it too much. So maybe that's Voyager. It's been a while. So anyway, there's Enterprise. And then I just finished the second book in the Millennium Trilogy, the DS9 Millennium Trilogy. It is really good. I don't know. Do you remember anything about the second book? It's been a while.
Don't know. Yeah.
I mean, literally came out in 2000. It was quite good. It's like, you know, the premise is basically the crew of DS9 is flung 25 years into the future. Spoilers for a 20-year book. They're flung 25 years in the future, and the pod rapes have basically like, you know, gathered a huge following in the quadrant, and Wei-Yun is like their emissary. It's like crazy. And then the goal is to merge. There's like this red wormhole, and the goal is for them to merge the two wormholes, and that's going to literally end the universe. And it's not really well explained like how that's supposed to happen, but basically everyone's trying to stop this from happening. Like the Federation, the Clan Empire, even the Borg are helping. It's like everyone's involved, and everyone dies. Like everyone from the TNG cast, the DS9 cast, and the Voyager cast dead. Like it's like, and then it's like one of those things where it's like, all right, they're gonna just reset everything, you know, because everyone's dead. So I'm like, the book was quite good, and now I'm starting the third book. So yeah, but getting through that, and then yeah, I would say that that's pretty much it in terms of what I've been Star Trekking.
I did think of one other thing I did end up watching. I did end up watching The Search for Spock. So iTunes had a deal for $30. You could get all 10 movies.
Oh
so
they're like streaming all the time.
I know. but I wanted to have them, my own digital copies of them. So so I watched that, and comfort food again, just something to kind of pass the time over the last couple of weeks. I don't even remember when I watched it. It was probably like 2 weeks ago, but
okay.
But yeah, so yes, I don't know if the deal's still alive, but if you're an Apple user, you can go get the 10 movies for $30. So there you go.
There we go. Wonderful. So I think that does it for this segment. Why don't we move on to Spilling the Trek?
Things are not as they were.
No, they're not.
I take no pleasure in this. But as of now, you're relieved of your duty as my number one. You will restrict yourself to Chief Science Officer duties only.
All right, Mike, so why don't we talk about Scavengers? So what did you think of this episode?
Well, so Scavengers, episode 6, the CBS All Access snippet about it is: after receiving a message from Book, Burnham and Georgiou embark on a rogue mission to find him, leaving Saru to pick up the pieces with Admiral Vance. Meanwhile, Stamets forms an unexpected bond with Adira. There's a lot to love about this episode.
It is another Fetch Quest episode, by the way, but continue.
Yes. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about what a Fetch Quest episode is?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of that lately. A Fetch Quest episode, at least to me, and this is, and I don't know if it's like common terminology, but it is very much a gaming term in terms of what a Fetch Quest is. But basically, it is a task. It's centered around a task where you have to go get something, and the entire story there's a side quest in a game where it's a fetch quest. It's like someone tasks you something, go get it, come back, and then it's the entire story. So there have been a lot of fetch quests. Like the last episode, Die Trying was also a fetch quest where they had to literally fetch these seedlings or whatever. In this case, they had to go fetch Book as well as the black box. So yes, this was definitely another fetch quest centric episode, which there's a lot of that this season. But anyway,
thank you for explaining that for my non-gaming self. I knew you could, do that. The thing I love about this episode is, anytime you get Georgiou being her badass self, I mean, you gotta love Michelle Yeoh. She chews the scenery a little bit. I mean, I know it's kind of a character. I love it.
There's like so much scenery chewing. She just needs kind of like a mustache to twirl,
I mean, if we meet her someday at Las Vegas at a Star Trek convention, I might be quite speechless, and I might get down on my knees and bow to her. I don't know, but I really love Michelle Yeoh, and so anytime that she gets to chew out a little Orion nephew, which she did a lot in this episode, it was great. It was really enjoyable.
She had some good lines too.
She had some great lines in this episode. Yeah, absolutely.
She's just so snarky.
Yes, she was great. I think the first great line was, "You had me at unsanctioned mission," and it kind of goes on from there. And it is an unsanctioned mission, so I'm kind of two minds of this. One, I feel like, why does she have to do this? Right? I kind of roll my eyes, thinking, "Oh, here we go, Burnham. You're going," and a lot of the discussion online has been, Burnham reverting back to her season 1 self, right? So that's a little concerning, first of all, and obviously it has not dire, but pretty severe consequences for her later on. But so, in that sense, I don't really, I'm not on board with this little side mission. But On the other hand, seeing Georgiou and Phil and Michael doing this mission together, I think is just great, and they're a great team. And I think also towards the end of this episode, we learn what's partially going on with Georgiou. We still don't know exactly what it is, and I still hold on to my theory that from last week, from our last episode, that it has something to do with the degrading of her stem cells or something medical like that. I know a popular theory is that the guy with the glasses did something to her. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but we'll see. I don't know. And also, there's a lot of speculation about where the Section 31 series is going to be set.
Right.
And by where, I mean when actually. So there's some conversation about going back to the 22nd century again in order to save her life. Who knows? So I'm excited to see how that kind of all plays out. I will be sad to see her leave, which is kind of inevitable. We kind of know that she's going to leave, and I also think that I think this is also part of the process. Like, now that they've gotten to the 31st century, or the 32nd century, actually.
Correct.
They will, I think they're going to be shedding some people and hopefully starting to invest more in the main bridge crew and giving them some more screen time and digging into their story a little bit more. So there's that. And then there's this whole other A plot going on back on the ship. Actually, there's two A plots. So there's, Tilly and Saru talking about what to do about Michael. And that's a pretty powerful conversation. And wow, you would think you were talking to Lieutenant Commander Tilly, meaning not in what happens in the next episode, right? But essentially, she seems so much more grounded, so much older, so much more mature. And basically calls out Michael's behavior as wrong. So, there's that whole scene. I question whether it was the right decision for Saru to go to an ensign to talk about this, even though we love Tilly and I am a huge Tilly fan. I'm actually big.
Didn't he go to her just to be like, "Where is Michael?" Like, wasn't that
well?
Why he went to her?
Yeah, he went to her to,
and then it kind of
find
evolved
out if she
into
knew.
This is a problem. Like, I think it was because he was assuming that Tilly would know where Michael was.
Yes, yeah. And so I also, now that you bring that up, I don't really agree with Saru kind of going to Tilly to try to figure this out. I think that that's manipulative. I think that's, I just don't think that that's something that a captain should be doing. But I know that they formed a good bond in the second episode when they went and left the ship and went to the outpost. But I still don't see that as a valid reason for Saru to go to her in that way. Now, her response is actually, I think, much more mature than him even coming to her and asking the question. So that's also an interesting thing. And I do like Saru as a captain. I like him to a certain point. I think he's a little bit too by the book. Right. I get it, but I said in our last podcast that I think he's a little bit too by the book, and I still feel that. Although going to an ensign is a little bit off the book, but I feel like Tilly actually showed him up in that conversation. She really responded in such a mature and adult way, which being able to look back, having watched the next episode already, Unification 3, it makes a lot of sense what happens in that. However, I still think that Tilly played this really well, and it's great to see her growth in that way. And then we have obviously Stamets and Adira, and Adira shows Stamets the new interface that she created for him, which deeply endears her to him already. Then she sees he sees her talking to herself in air quotes, actually
Right.
talking to Gray, and Stamets believes her, and then she also helps remove the things that are in Stamets'
Like the
arms.
shunts or whatever. in his
Yeah.
arm. Yeah.
So I mean, and that and what I really love, and obviously as this is a gay podcast, I love the conversation at the end of the episode between Hugh and Stamets and Paul. I thought that
Mhm.
was really it was really nice to see that. And so yeah, I mean that's a huge broad stroke of the episode, but
Yeah.
those are the things that kind of stood out for me. But what stood out for you in this episode? What were some of your favorite parts, and what did you what weren't, more importantly, what stuck in your mouth, or what really didn't hit home for you on this episode?
I'm not sure I have that many complaints about this episode. I actually did thoroughly enjoy this episode. Similar to what you were just talking about, I really did enjoy some of the character moments, such as some of the moments between Georgiou and Michael, the moments between Stamets and Adira, and then also between Saru and Tilly. I thought that those were really good conversations. Character developing conversations. I really liked how there was some callback to like past trauma. How Georgiou was calling Michael out for her relationship with Ash Tyler. Like that was that quick mention, and basically how that wasn't like a necessarily ideal relationship, when she was kind of like probing her / kind of provoking her about what her relationship status with Book is. But I like that callback to Ash Tyler, since it's been a while since we even talked about Ash Tyler. And then yes, the conversation between Stamets and Adira, and basically how they were also talking about shared trauma, where they were kind of exploring how the trauma of kind of losing their significant others has shaped them, and Stamets kind of opening up about how Hugh's death and then resurrection affected him. I thought that those were really good callbacks to pretty major and significant relationship moments in those characters' lives that we haven't really talked about in a while, because it was last season, and last season feels like forever ago. But I do think that those were really that was just a really great way to kind of bring the past to the present, that I really did appreciate. But yeah, the other thing that really stood out to me for this episode was just like it was just like the tech, and I know we talked about this a little bit in our last podcast, but some of the tech and the CGI was just really good, but maybe a little over the top. I don't know if we necessarily needed to rechristen the Discovery to be the Discovery A. Like I was like, it's not even a new ship. I mean, I know they're refitting it quite a bit, but it's not like they constructed a brand new ship. But sure, right. If that makes everyone feel better. So we saw like,
and I think it does make people feel better because of the whole time travel piece,
right?
And I think that sort of protects Vance and his upper echelon of people who know what this ship is and where it came from. So I feel like that's part of the reason to have that. I would imagine that very few ships in the fleet right now do not have a letter after their NCC number. So I think that's part of it. I know there is what you bring up, a lot of people online brought up why do they need the A, and I think ultimately it's for the protection of the crew and everyone in Starfleet from the whole temporal accords, and again, we don't actually. Yeah, the other thing too is I don't. There's no clear indication of this, but my feeling is that there's someone who's monitoring time stuff in this time, and So I think that, you know, at some future point we might learn about some part of Starfleet or another group that watches the timeline and enforces the temporal accords.
Well, there was like
So
the temporal. There is like a temporal. I don't remember like
agency, yeah,
division, but I
yeah.
don't know. They haven't talked about it. I think this season.
No,
I
they
mean, but
haven't. No.
back on Voyager, and also even
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
temporal division at Starfleet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
so we haven't heard about that.
So I think that might actually ultimately protect them from that. But you know, also in a lot of ways, this is a brand new discovery. You know, the bones are the same, but I would say that would be about it. If you compare the two pictures online, a lot of the support struts are gone for the spinning saucer section, and then
Are they?
yeah.
Oh, I need to look at that again.
Yeah, so it really is a redesign in a lot of ways. So there are some things that would really indicate it's a lot more than a refit. But I think that the A, if I had to guess, and maybe we'll see in the future, I would say that the A is to protect everyone from the temporal time agents or whatever.
Interesting.
So that would be
interesting
my
theory.
Yeah, we'll see if any one of my theories are ever right, which they usually are not. But in this case, I think maybe I've got a shot at being more right than less right.
Well, we'll see.
But I do want that iPhone badge. I mean, that badge does everything. I mean, although, you know, I do kind of still stand by my whole theory from last week, which was that it's too much special effects and it kind of obscures the actors a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I do like the actual physical holding of a device like a tricorder, because I feel it literally, you know, there's something tactile about, even if it was me, I would just want something tactile to work with as a tool than necessarily a holographic display. That being said, Star Trek, at least on the Instagram page, it was an IGTV piece. They were talking about the new comm badges. Did you see this? It was like a 3-minute piece, but it was really interesting. They kind of put a lot of thought into how the comm badges work and how basically it's motion censored, and based upon how you motion with your hand. Like if you motion upwards, that means that you want to activate like a tricorder. If you motion downwards, that's something else. If you double tap it, and you can notice that if you double tap it, that transports you back to like your home, like whatever your home base is. So they actually thought about like how you actually work with the comm badge, which I thought was interesting. It is cool that it's kind of like this like 360 device, but I will kind of miss like the other tech that's around. Like, is there like a point to having a transporter room anymore? You know, I mean,
true. Yeah.
They use it in the next episode, so I'm like,
do, yes.
But why?
Right.
Why are they? You know, to what end do they need that? So yeah, so there was the tech side of things. Discovery got the detached cells, which I have yet to see the point of, but sure. No, but then there was a lot of action, like when they were kind of blowing things up on the planet, and it was just like very spectacular. Like the set pieces and the whole escape from the facility and whatnot. Like they just did like I think one thing that we probably can rarely fault Discovery on is having good action and good set pieces, and they just did a great job, like with that whole scene. So yeah, I think I mean that's mostly for me. Like I think that what you already talked about, like kind of also resonate with me. And
I'm looking forward to seeing more with Stamets and Adira and Culber, like the bonds that they form. I'm looking forward to more of that.
Yeah, no, I am too. I'm looking forward to, Tilly being Saru's number one. I know that is next episode, but this is the evolution of her character this season, where she's taking on more responsibility. And I've always loved Tilly, so kind of growing her in a way that is a little more than kind of just like the silly nerdy sidekick, I think is great for her. And yeah, I think just more of the Georgiou mystery and what's going on there, I think is definitely something to expound on. But yeah, I actually didn't really have too many complaints. I know I usually have more. Oh, but wait, there is crying. We didn't even talk about that. That's right. Yeah, so yeah, we didn't really talk about the end of the episode that much, but yeah, basically, one of the things that we talked about in the last episode is where Admiral Vance, basically gave Saru the directive to handle Michael as he saw fit, which I, again, like, and, that's why I like in a boss. And Saru basically deciding to demote Michael to chief science officer, and then it's just so melodramatic. It's like, I don't understand why there's so much drama, like why there's crying. And, like, and I've said this about Sonequa Martin Green before. I think sometimes she like overacts things a little bit. And, I think that overall she's a great actress, but sometimes like there are certain scenes where I'm like, this is like, you're putting like a lot of weight into the scene where I don't know if this much needs to be going into the scene right now. But it's just like the tears. I was like, oh my God, like, please stop crying. I don't need this in my life. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess there is gravity to the scene because it's not just about the emotion, but also the broken trust between Saru and Michael. And I understand that, but it's like, oh God, more tears. The season's like crying budget. I don't know. It's astronomical. But anyway, that would be my one gripe. But I think overall, I really did enjoy the episode. So I guess that does it for this week's episode, since we've already exhausted every topic that we can think of. So Mike, how can our fans reach us to give us their thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to send us an email, our email is deepspacepride@gmail.com. You can also follow us and message us on Instagram and Twitter, where our handle in both places is @deepspacepride. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye everyone. See you next time.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut.